All right, so I think we can get started with this panel. Welcome everyone. So today is the panel on automotive, open source as a path for automotive, for competitive automotive industry. I'm gonna ask you a few questions. Who of you are involved in any automotive organization right now or have been in the past? Okay, so perhaps you won't be needed this intro slide that we're gonna start, but for those who are new into the automotive industry, I think the panelists here and myself, we wanted to give you an overview on what's going on in terms of open source and why it's taking importance in the automotive industry. So this industry is taking a transformation, and there are different areas where open source is getting integrated. The major point is safety, but also in electric vehicles. We are seeing this in cloud and connectivity of the car vehicles. We are seeing this in the autonomous driving. We are seeing more open standards being implemented in the whole supply chain, and even to move to the software-defined vehicles. So we are seeing these trends where the architecture of the software of the car are becoming centralized. So in the past, there was more a decentralized infrastructure. Usually cars have and even have like between 100, 200 electronic control units, the ECUs, and the ideal scenario is to move to reduce that, to become more centralized, to perhaps have between 1, 2, or less amount of these units. There is also a move to a cloud-native architecture to achieve this software-defined vehicle that this industry wants to achieve. And there is open source-based infrastructure being adopted. So the thing is that in all these areas, nearly everything is open source. You're thinking about autonomous car driving, all the ML models, all the AI infrastructure used to fuel those models has a backup on open source frameworks, just for instance, PyTorch. But also the tools to be developed, most of them are open source. In the software platforms for EVs, we're also seeing a lot of open source. In connectivity, in 5G, it's also the same. But this is something that the industry knows, but there are challenges. And here we are with our subject matter experts to shed light into those challenges and to help understand why the organization are implementing open source, why it's a strategic asset for the organization, and to move to this software-defined vehicle transition. So with that, I'd like to introduce our speakers today and have the first question for all of you. That is why your organization sees open source as a motivation to invest and in your specific areas. So I'll start with Carl, and we can do this round of intros.
So I'll make a short presentation myself. Maybe using the microphone as well. And I'll try to answer your question as well. So Carl Mols, I've been in Volvo Cars since 3 years. Started up the Volvo Cars open source program office 2.5 years ago. I've been studying in the automotive industry for 4 years. Before that was the mobile industry. And that's interesting because I was part of the transformation from proprietary operating system for mobile phones to Android open source in 2008-9. And so I saw the whole industry, how it transformed. And now 15 years later, I'm seeing the same thing is happening now in the automotive industry, although much slower, I have to say. So to answer your question, I think that one of the fundamental driving forces for the automotive industry to look into open source is that if in each and every OEMs, every automotive maker is going to build this core computing, that's a huge investment. I don't know the figures for Volvo cars, but let's say it's about €1 billion that's been spent in developing the core computing for the Volvo cars that we have now in the new cars. And in each and every one is going to spend that. The whole industry will spend tens of billions of software that actually could be 90% of that could be common. And I think that is an increasing realization by the automotive industry. This doesn't work. It's too costly for the whole industry. So the solution will be collaborate, share code with each other for the core computing, for the basic stuff, the plumbing, and then compete with each other on what is differentiating. So autonomous driving, yeah, we will not share that with BMW. But the rest of it, we could. So that would be my answer. I think the driving forces is cost.
Thank you. Before moving forward, because I forgot that this is an interactive session, I wanted to start in advance for you while our speakers are introducing themselves and sharing their story, to think about questions, to think about topics, themes, ideas. You might have a story to share in your organization, and that is where the live Q&A is. So I'll keep this while the speakers are introducing for you to share your questions. I have my mobile here to check as questions comes in, and we will be answering them once the panelists introduce themselves. So sorry for the interruption. Masato, whoever wants to go next.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Masato from Toyota Motor Corporation. I'm head of the open source program office of Toyota. And I also of the manager of the system development in Toyota. And I also engaged in some open source community work like OpenChain and AGL and so on. And I also promoting the open source in Japan as a Japan evangelist of the Linux Foundation. So I'd like to promote the open source in automotive industry and Japan industry also. And the answer of the another question is very simple. The software is become more important in our industry, and almost soft becomes open source right now. So open source is very important for our industry also. So today I'm very looking forward to the discussion with automotive friends. Thanks so much.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Julian. I'm within Mercedes-Benz Tech Innovation a little over 8 years, and starting from my beginning I was working with open source, and it evolves and evolves, and I guess approximately 3 years ago I was joining the MBTI open source program office. So and here I try my best to support our developers by anything regarding software composition analysis, and mainly having a voice of the developers within the OSPO. And of course, we need to speed up the software development. I guess that's obvious. And we are in a highly regulated branch. And I mean, we need to speed up. We need to be compliant. So this is, I would say, one of our biggest challenges that we are facing right now in the automotive industry.
Okay. So from my side, I'm Philipp, working for Etas. Etas is the 100% subsidiary of Bosch, where I've been many years before, starting my real professional automotive career. My background, open source and automotive, it's now like 20 years so or more. And what I really like is we're now talking much more about automotive and open source, but our first endeavors, like with the cost saving and technology opportunities which we already did in 2011-12, where we brought our first infotainment device and ported from proprietary operating system to Linux, and later on sold like 30 million plus infotainment navigation devices equipped with Linux to the world, not as Bosch directly, but via the car manufacturers. And maybe one other than, I don't know if you've seen the keynote today from Daniel. Most likely some of them are also our head units where you can find the curl in there. I don't know. Anyway, these days with the SDV parts and so on, I see this shift from infotainment, so it's gone, it's still open source, it's Android. But now the safety critical part comes in, and that's where I'm, since 2019, looking more into how do we bring safety criticality combined with open source into the cars. And while we have significant challenges, we need to see maybe 3 elements in there. So when we're talking about safety, we also often look at the qualifications that people bring. And for this, you have subject matter experts. And these are kind of, nobody is really fully objective, but they can be objective because they are not bound into any company border. So you have really a neutral perspective from experts when you use open source. Also, in open source, best technology solutions are competing with each other. So you have a chance to get better technology. And one driving element which I really see is the source code being available and to have a judgment on how things are happening. So you get full visibility, which actually sometimes make life hard for some of the developers which are in development in a company. And when you tell them, please provide your work to the open, they are hesitating because they say, maybe my work is not good enough for open source. And I think this is some really good statement where the quality plays in hand, what open source delivers. And that's why we are looking also, beside topics like cost and other benefits, where we say like, okay, we can have experts, a community, technology, we enhance maintenance because we see there's a long time maintenance which we have to share on all these hundreds of ECUs and so on. So it's really the driver for Bosch and for Etas also to spend much more time in open source.
Thank you. So I'm going to go right away with questions because we have a lot. So thank you so much. Just a reminder, if we don't get the time to go through all of them, vote for your favorite one. So I will prioritize the ones that get most votes. So the first one is how do you grow a community around an automotive specific project? Well, there are only a few dozens OEMs and thus potential adopters. So I think who wants to answer or reply? Yeah.
Yeah, so that is a challenge. I would say that in the world is about, it's more than 10, 12. It's a couple of hundred. In China alone, there's more than 100 EV makers. So there's many companies, but arguably maybe not that big or that interested to engage themselves. And that is one of the issues that I've been facing in Volvo Cars, is that how are we going to connect communities that are not there, that understands automotive. But fortunately, the latest 3-4 years, there have been some automotive open source foundations, so to speak, emerging. And we have mentioned here AGL from the Linux Foundation, so automotive grade Linux, that's one. We have ELISA, represented by Philipp, so enabling Linux in safer applications. Then Eclipse Foundation formed the Eclipse Foundation Software-Defined Vehicle Working Group, which is more or less the automotive open source organization, and running the core computing project, SCORE. And then in addition, we have Covisa that was formed from Jiménez, but was transformed to the Connected Vehicle Alliance and in 2021. So the answer is that the OEMs has to seek out the communities for automotive development, because again we have certain limitations and requirements on functional safety or following the functional safety standards. And all of these organizations are aware of this. So it's more that getting the automotive manufacturers getting into and forming collaborations in the now emerging automotive organizations.
And maybe also one part for what I've seen in the past quite a lot was that companies from automotive were in a direction of open source and they were pushing, and the first attempt they made was starting their own open source project. And it's a question like how you find adopters. And often this push was done in a late state. So basically you come up with an almost mature solution, and that's how you used to develop an automotive, right? You bring a robust, secure and properly done product into the market. And if you do it with open source, you wonder why nobody picks it up. And what we can see now during the last 1 year, I would say, at least what I observe, is that we see cross-collaboration of projects. That the Cuxa project ends up in the AGL, that it combined things from the Cufisa work. So you have a Cufisa, AGL, Eclipse SDV connection, which is bridged by a project. And also that people start integrating one project with the other. And I think the message is that we need to look more into where we can contribute to projects or utilize pre-existing projects than rather just flooding the world with more and more own initiatives. And a very strong thing currently, like Colin mentioned, is also the S-Core part, where many companies jump on because they look for a collaborative environment. And one part which we may also need to accept is that an automotive open source project may not behave like open source project in the beginning, because, as we said, like the compliance parts, the regulatory things, they all need to be kept from the beginning. And if you cannot show how you do the license handling, how you manage contributions, how the IP rights are shared, because IP is still a topic for automotive, if you don't manage this at the beginning, then the automotive people may not adopt because they still need to comply to a lot of regulations. And that's why additional things come in.
May I add one additional complication in the automotive industry, and that is very much governed by antitrust laws or competition laws. And that is also one thing that the foundations offers is a neutral ground, so to speak, that is kept under governance that is according to the anti-competition laws. And so that is also one thing that the foundations offers is neutral ground.
Yeah, so compared with traditional digital standardization, I think open source approach is very speedy and flexible. So Philipp-san says, so already we can collaborate with AGL or Eclipse or Elisa also. So I think beforehand, so one standard is exist, the other standard is compete. But I think in software world, we can pick up the each module of the source code, and we can combine the freely. So I think important thing is that community, each community have to read each community members' needs. It's very important to catch up with the competition with the development. So I think to discuss with the community member or OEMs and suppliers is very important.
Thank you. We have another question. Should we open source the large AutoStar stacks, Vector, ETL, ACE, and so on, to provide a common baseline for automotive software?
It may go to me because it mentions my company. It's not a completely easy thing, right, with the open sourcing the AutoSAR stack. What we definitely hear from OEMs is that they want to have a solution where they're not tied and bound in to a single vendor, where they have a chance to have a competition. And it's not bound to AutoSAR. It's basically like if you have a set solution and it's a proprietary one, you may look for open source alternatives. And if you look into the Safe Open Vehicle Core project, it combines a lot of building blocks or feature blocks, which you'll also find in adaptive world. And we all know that, or maybe not all know, a bunch may know that the adaptive business is not so huge as it was estimated to be. And the question is like, how do we still also make a business out of it that the cake is shared by many parties? And that's why you see more open roles. But how the contractual situations are in the AutoSAR world is, it's a lot of IP, and it's just like an IP sharing pool. So you cannot simply put an AutoSAR stack under an open source, traditional open source license. Even if you have a very permissive license, you may still conflict with the original contracts of AutoSAR, so it's very hard to bring this forward. So you may even need to think for a bunch of parts of re-implementing the same topic just in the open. But there's definitely the tendency, and you see a lot of partners coming in to this.
Sorry. So another question, why is the automotive move to our third open source foundation software so slow? I think it's compared to maybe traditional software companies. What hinders sharing in this industry? I think this is a question for all of you, if someone wants to take the question.
I guess based on the history, we have quite long development circles, and of course we need to speed up. We need to speed them up, of course. And as Philipp already mentioned, since the last year, we see lots of drive in that direction. So also from our side, the contribution to projects is evolving, is increasing. That's a good picture, but I guess the whole industry will need a couple of years to get the speed. But I guess that's nothing we can achieve within just a year or even two.
Yeah, so it is not only in open source things, but also all the system development issue is very slow. So I engaged in some driver monitoring systems development inside Toyota, and the POC, POC we can take the Agile approach. So it's like a DevOps development. So it's very speedy. But if the system development proceeds real product development, it takes very long time. Not only development, but also many testing. And we have to test not only for the simulator, but also we have to real vehicles test also. It takes very long times. So I think many people are very familiar with such type of waterflow approach. I think this is very important for qualify the quality of the software. So, but I think some applications layer not have the concern about the security or safety. We have to accelerate, and I think open source world is I think more future development, or we have to accelerate the development and the community approach also. So I think it is very difficult and it takes time, but we have to proceed little by little.
There is a question about tools and processes, really interesting. So this person asks, what processes does your organization have in place for evaluating and selecting open source software projects for use in your product? I guess there's like a whole stack, but perhaps highlighting like the one you use the most in your day-to-day, or the one you find most useful.
Anyone?
First of all, you have to bear in mind is we're talking about many different systems. And then we're taking about many differences within a car. So there's software development for all the services and all the cloud things that we have. that is easier to use open source, no problem. The challenge is software within the car, and particularly the software that controls the car. The infotainment, no problem, is running independent. It won't disturb you, hopefully, when you're running in a freeway in 180 kilometers an hour. But for the systems that steers the car, then it has to be secure, safe. That is on the challenge here is that we're coming from a world when we had 150 ECUs, developed in a very traditional embedded world way of doing things. And more so because most manufacturers are not making these ECUs themselves. They're not writing the software for these ECUs. Most of them has been acquired by suppliers that were building that. And then you get in all these long testing cycles, and if you have a change request, it will take weeks, if not months, until you get that request. The vision that drives now the whole automotive industry, the software-defined vehicle vision, is that you will run all your software, the whole full car's software, in the cloud, in a virtualized, simulated environment, and doing all the testing in the cloud with a virtual car, in a virtual environment. That is the dream. And it's going to be a huge system to build. We're striving towards that, and it will take a couple of years of development until we're ending up there. But that will be the end point when we can do all the testing, all simulation, trying out and building the software in the cloud. And once it's ready and tested and certified and everything, you push the button and it's downloaded to the car. Hopefully when it's not running, because it could be a challenge. But that's the so the transformation that the automotive industry is going is from a very traditional embedded world to something simulated, virtual digital twin with the full environment, not only the car simulated, but also all the environments, roads and everything. And you're doing development in that, and then you deploy it into the car.
Yeah, from a practical perspective on selecting open source components, what we've done in the past, for example, so some people will hate me for this, and sorry to say this, but we cannot always use GPLv3 inside cars because we have proprietary elements in there, and sometimes just get binaries. We do not even have our own chance to reproduce things if we buy in certain parts. But the first thing which I experience is whenever there's coming something up for GPLv3 for inside the car, there was most likely a first check and then, no, that's the border, so we will not proceed further, even if it's the best solution. Good thing is there's often also a commercial edition on this. So if you take just one random example, but I was just standing next to Daniel this morning with that Wolf SSL, there's a commercial version of it and there is a free version of it. So there's a good sense of just licensing this thing. So it's not that there's nobody want to pay if it's a very good solution. So this is something which you would check, is there a commercial offer on top? What we also did was like to say, is there a vivid community behind? Is there a roadmap? Do we find evidence? We did this, for example, for container frameworks comparison. That we said, how do they behave? How good is the user documentation? Then how much resources are actually consumed. So we did some first trials and see how much CPU is used, how much memory is used for our use cases where we want to make use of it. And one thing which shouldn't be underestimated, we were, for example, like, is there something like a de facto standard which we can use? So from container technology, we said we would always prefer an OCI compliant container because then we have more flexibility rather than going into proprietary container extensions, even if it's lower at this use case. Then last part, we check CVEs, of course, as well. So you can say, okay, this is more a secure solution or less secure. For hypervisor, for example, we check, like, can we build up our security use cases? And as this, we go through many evaluation steps. And what I observed lately is also that, like, dashboards from Bitergia and others help us also with open SSF parts where you have scorecards, other things, that it helps us to evaluate the healthiness and the trustworthiness of communities to just proceed, because we need to maintain products over 20 to 30 years.
And so I like your point, and also the point of Carl, but it feels like there is no hard requirement list for selecting open source component. I mean, you have a context that is highly important. It can be inside the car, it could be outside the car, it could be a mobile component for mobile apps, let's say, front-end components, etc. I guess there is no hard list we could share or which is existing. It depends on your use case, I would say.
Yeah, you're right. So you can just see some examples somewhere, and it's, as you say, on the use case where things, so like for the Apertus project, which is Debian-based distro, there you can actually find how components have been selected, and Bosch was financing it a lot. So this was going through the things, and yeah.
Okay, so I have a question for Julian. So with your role in promoting open source and inner source at Mercedes, what strategies have proven effective in encouraging company-wide adoption of open source?
That's a hard question, to be honest. I mean, the automotive industry has a, let's say, quite closed history. So most of the source code was, let's say, just in the silo, and to really bring to really change the mindset of the people, that's the hardest part. And I mean, you can start that by provide awareness, provide some trainings, and make it as easiest as possible to allow the people to go inner source. And of course, also this is more or less the same for the open source. Guiding for the people is something I see also highly important, that the developers have a central place where they can raise questions, where they can get help, not just on, let's say, processual topics, but also on technical issues. For example, when they do their scans and there's something wrong. And I guess it's a journey.
There was a question from Endo-san. Yeah, what are the objectives and challenges in setting up the Toyota OSPO, and how have they changed since last year?
Yeah, so our open source history is 15 years. When 50 years ago, we became a member of the Linux Foundation and set up the AGL. And of course, we promote open source development inside the Toyota. And but mainly the focus was how to clear the risks of the open source to embed it for embedded vehicle. So beforehand, we focused on the IP issues like patent risks or copyright risks also. So we focus on the open chain or open invention network and to do also. So, but I think so become the software first or SDV era, we have to contribute the open source community more for keep the competitiveness of our technology and our products. So I and my team member decided to make the OSPO last year, and to get the allowance and the budget and the resources from the company, and to set up the OSPO. And after the set up OSPO, we make the 3 open source community, AGL, OSPO expert group, and last safety critical Rust consortium, and EBPF Japan community also. So we focused on to develop the community and to support the community people. So we do the open source event in our company's offices, and we promote the joining the open source activities for employees, and not only for Toyota people, but also other automotive people right now. Yeah.
I think we have just one last question or a wrap-up message. Wrap-up message. Which one do you want? Last question or wrap-up message?
Yeah, we take a message. Take a message, and then if you want to give some statements, some final closing statements for now. Or something which you want to encourage the people also to keep it clothing.
I have a message to the automotive industry. Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated.
I see. Okay, so I think in this period, my one headache is contribution from the automotive companies very few right now because culture or company's system in automotive industry. So we focused on the to promote the contribution from the automotive industry and how to solve that. We discussed in the AGL, OSPO EG. This is not only for AGL, but also all open source communities. So please join it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, from my perspective, we should make it for developers as easiest as possible to contribute or even to bring projects open source. I know it sounds like an easy thing, but it will take a while until we change the mindset that we do lots of upstream stuff, and I hope we will get it as soon as possible.
I think my message would be to say we have many skilled engineers in automotive, and they hesitate to do their first contribution. And there is already so much open source around there. There are so many solutions there that you do not need to bring in your own project to have the 101 container framework. 100 are enough. And by this, just if there are critical gaps, fill this gap. And an 80% solution can become a 100% solution if you just add these 20% to your needs, rather than reinventing the wheel. And by this, really, I would say, I would encourage everyone to just start with a small patch, go somewhere, go to these communities. They are all open, they are all welcoming, and what they really miss are contributors for the automotive. And you can go through the whole list, just come and bring first small patches, maybe not AI-generated ones, and just make your experience in these welcoming communities to just show solutions and appreciation to the work you're anyway consuming.
Thank you. So I think we are on time, but I just wanted to finish to mention that all the questions that you have been adding to the Slido pool, these are not just going to go away. The idea is to take those questions, even the ones that we weren't able to answer in 40 minutes frame, because it's really difficult. There were a lot of questions, believe me. We're going to take those and we're going to work on a blog post. And our speakers here are trying to do their best to answer them. And this can be shared through your company, through your colleagues, and so on. So if there are any last-minute questions that you would like to include for the summary, like panel summary that will come up in the next weeks, just feel free to add yours and we will take care of that. Thank you.
Thank you.